Welcome back, Double I Squad. It's your girl, Miss KK, coming back at you once again with another edition of Illegitimate Intellectuals. We're completing last week's conversation. Thank you so very much for joining us. And hey, don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, we're on Insta, and we're on Twitter. It's your girl, Miss KK. Let's jump right into it, y'all. Everything that you said is brilliant because it speaks to the point of, do we date with intent and purpose? Because I know for me, I struggled with my physical appearance. I didn't think I was attractive. So I pretty much just settled for whoever talked to me. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, I didn't hold up a certain standard to people in terms of first getting into a relationship with them. So I never asked myself, what did I hope to gain or learn or even give? Of what was I willing to sacrifice or give to someone by being in relationship with them? And when you're young, I don't think on a bigger scale, for the most part, I don't think anybody asks those questions. Right. But as you get older and you've gone through some of the tomfoolery, you've dated really attractive people, you've dated some people.
Not so much.
You know what I'm saying? So at this point, you've dated based on, intangibles. You've dated based on things that you can see. So what is it that we ultimately do? Do you think that as a people, we date with intent or purpose?
That's crazy because I think some do. I think some date and hope. Like there's some people who are hopeless romantics and they hope that whoever they get involved with, that person's the one. I think there's some people who do date with intent because, they obviously want to build and establish something, especially if they see a lot of positive things upon onset of dating. I think there's some people who just date because they don't want to be alone.
I think that happens a lot.
That happens a lot. And I think that's not the way to be because sometimes you have to be comfortable being alone with yourself.
You do.
And before you can be with someone else, because you don't want to just date someone because, you don't like being alone, but then you and that person may have different, visions and different wants in the end. You know Absolutely. What I'm saying? So me personally, if I date, yeah, I would date with the intent on something bigger. But as I've gotten older, I've studied the game a lot more. Mm-hmm. I don't just date just because. Even when I was single, I would go on dates, but of course you'd still be careful what you do.
Right. How you move, where you take them.
Exactly. Because, and you have people who also date at a convenience. So like you can have women who have always dated dudes who weren't long in the pockets, but they meet a dude who has long pockets and they're like, oh, okay. And sometimes it gets to the point they will stick with that man, even though Regardless. They're not 100% happy, but they know, well, I'm going to be financially satisfied in this future journey that we're going on. So I'll stick it out regardless.
I remember this dude was telling me that he met a woman in a bar and he was invited over to her house sometime later, which was an apartment that she shared with her aunt and a cousin. And mind you, this woman was in her 30s. When they got to her room, she had a mattress on the floor. And she asked him to bring her some pizza.
Did she just move there and she just kind of literally just moved there? Oh.
She, come to find out, she was not gainfully employed. She didn't have any children, but she's in her 30s. She's sleeping on a mattress in a room in an aunt's house. You know what I'm saying? And he still did what he came there to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why would you put yourself in a situation? Because he continued to talk to her for a little bit after that. And he said ultimately he cut her off because she would always ask him to bring her food. I'm like, you laid down with the woman because she had a big butt.
Right.
And you threw away all the red flags that she laid just bare.
However many minutes of pleasure you can get. Yeah.
And it's like, so both men and women put themselves in compromising situations and they don't really think about their time as an investment, because however many weeks or months he spent doing that, he could have been invested in himself, or a more quality woman.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I'm saying? Because the dude he's not a bad looking brother. He's a nice dude. And I would clown him for the decision that he made. But
was that a Sealy Posturepedic? Did it have springs coming out? What kind of mattress was it?
Was it on bricks?
Right. Did it have a sleep number?
So, you know what I'm saying? But I think for the most part, we don't really put a lot of thought into certain things. Like you said, we look at the outward appearance and we're attracted to that. If they can hold a minimal conversation to some degree, depending on where you are, that may be sufficient for your needs, at least for you to get things started.
Right.
For me personally, I feel like I've been through a lot of personal trials that wouldn't do the trick for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I would need something a little more sustainable for me to invest any length of time into that. And you asked me before about dating someone who was not so easy on the eyes. One of the things that I'm passionate about is ironically celibacy, because that was one of the things that helped me to figure out what I wanted from myself and from others, because I was like, I don't want that at all. And that's not to say that I don't want to be attracted to someone or that they don't find me physically attractive.
It's just that being physically intimate is not on your to-do list anymore.
It's not. And it's discouraging, because when you think about it, especially for Black women, right? We get involved with people, we end up having children, and then we keep repeating the same cycle, right? And for men too, men also find like you're dating the same type of crazy, quote unquote crazy women. You're getting your windows in your car smashed. You're getting your tires slashed. You're getting these chicks, scaring you with pregnancies that aren't real. Then why are you continuing to engage in sex or putting yourself in situations where you are being exposed to the same type of issues?
Yes.
If you remove, this is my reasoning, if you remove that aspect, you minimize or you shave down a significant amount of the foolishness that you would deal with. And if the person is genuinely invested in you, they'll stick around, is my opinion. But I've also found that Black men especially, in theory, they're with that. They're like, yeah, I'll date a woman who's not having sex. But then when it comes to practice,
that's when it's hard, especially when you're in situations where it can happen. So let's say you're cuddled up on a couch watching a movie. You guys are laid up in a bed just talking. When you're in certain situations where you're like, all right, it's going to happen. And it really doesn't. You're like, dags, man. Like she's serious. So
that's the revelation that men have. They think that it's a challenge.
Well, I'll tell you this. So years back, I was in my early 20s and I met a nice looking woman. She had a child. And at the time, that's not something I was into because I was young, even though it eventually had happened. But this particular woman, very nice lady, educated, down to earth, wasn't ratchet at all, had beautiful eyes, she had nice legs, very nice looking lady. So we would talk and we exchanged numbers and stuff. And she said, I'm having a hard time dating because nobody wants a Christian woman. Those are her words. And I said to myself, man, get out of all that, man. She's not really Christian.
You got them long legs and a baby girl, you out here.
But see, the thing is, when she said Christian, I said to myself, yeah, I'll date you. I figure, you go to church, whatever, no big deal. But then when I got to know her, like, she was really Christian. So I remember her and I were talking on the phone. I said, yeah, yo, Black Rob, did you hear that video? Whoa, yo, that was nice. She said, Black Rob? She goes, I know about him. And I said, all right, so does everyone. She said, no, I'm serious. She goes, I didn't even know who he was because I don't listen to rap music. She said, matter of fact, I was talking to my girl last week. She said she was on a plane with Black Rob. And she said she thought she was talking about some dude they knew in high school. So talking to her and getting to know her, I said, wow, like she really is Christian. Like we went to church together. I went by her house. We all cooked. She listens to nothing but gospel music. And I said, oh man, I said, Dad.
Bummer.
Man. Yeah. Because, I mean, she was cool in everything. She could braid hair. She could braid my hair the whole nine, but she was really Christian. And like I said initially when she said Christian, because at the time I was going to church, I figured, yeah, you know, I like the word. I'm good with all that.
And I think that's the issue right there. That's the crux of it. And that speaks to so many levels, not just what we say in terms of our religious belief, because I feel like if you date a Muslim shorty, or if you're attracted rather to a Muslim shorty and she got the hijab on or whatever, you already know you're not smashing.
Right. Off rip. You have to get married.
You have to get married, all of that. You're going to sacrifice a sheep, all that's going to happen, right? Yeah. You can meet a woman who claims to be a follower of Christ, and she's going to be doing everything opposite in her actions
to show otherwise. And I think it's not just her. You know, you look at generations of people. You can look at aunts and uncles and grandparents who all said one thing and did something else. And we all felt like that's just the way it was. Mm-hmm. And it's not just limited to your religious belief, but I think that's how relationships get dysfunctional also, because the person is like a multiple personality. Yeah. You know, you can meet a person that is faithful and all of this in front of you, but when they get with their friends, they're a straight chicken head. They, you know, they got a fans only page on the side. You know, so there's a lot of falseness. There's a lot of disingenuousness, if that's a word. I don't think I'm a wordsmith, but yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, okay, we're going to roll with that.
Right. Better than principalities.
So, and I think that's the challenge for women, because I think a lot of us are coming into like the Hebrew Israelite thing, and they're starting to really believe and understand that the Bible is Black history and it's our history. It's not some book written by some other ethnicity and given to us. Mm-hmm. And I think when people kind of know that, it changes their willingness to be sincere and really follow things out. Right. So I find that, again, the celibacy thing, especially if you already have a child, it's like you already tried that, girl. It didn't work. So you out here, go on ahead and give the box up. You out here. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's almost as though in our community, especially, they don't want you to mature or grow, or it's like, I'm not saying I got a 2-week-old baby and I'm celibate. You know, that's different. It's like my kid is grown. You know, the relationship between me and their father is very different.
Right.
It's almost as though you can't tell a man, you can't tell a brother that you're a celibate woman and you're a single mother.
And see, again, I think this is where it goes back to generational, because years back, you know, if a woman told you, I'm not ready yet because of whatever reasons, right, most brothers say, okay, cool. Even though,
you know, they would still string you along because they smashing somebody else on the side.
But, well, no, that's true. But then there would be some brothers that are saying, okay, she's worth it. They wouldn't push
that's true.
Having sex so much, because even coming up, I remember if you were 17, 18, if you was tonguing a girl down in the back steps, that was like, wow.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You accomplished.
Like you getting dapped up, all
everything. But now in my field as an educator, I see a lot of, you know, young brothers and sisters, and a lot of them, especially the girls, have more sexual experience than that of a grown woman.
I'm telling you.
It's just how times have changed so much, even when it comes down to sexuality and stuff, because even then, like if you look at our parents and our grandparents, 9 times out of 10, you weren't having sex unless you're about to get married.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's just the way it was.
My mother married the same dude that took her to the prom. So I shared a video of these dudes that I like to watch sometimes on YouTube, Abba and Preach. They're from Canada. Yep. They're funny. So I shared one of the videos with a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And in the video, I believe Preach said he's been with the same girl since he was like maybe 16 or 17, and they're married. And his response was, I couldn't watch the whole video because to me, that's weird. It's weird that he's been only with one woman. It's like he almost felt a level of disdain for him as a man because he didn't have a long...
He wasn't able to experience sowing his oats and all that. Yeah.
And I was like, it's crazy that as a grown man in your 40s, you are looking on another man as though he's less than because he's been with the same girl since he was a teenager, right? Like, he was like, that's just weird to me. And likewise, I've spoken to men who are like, I don't want a chick that's like showroom pristine new.
But I look at a lot of men who have been married 30, 40 plus years, and I say to myself, I have the utmost respect, especially if you've been with the same woman.
Same one.
Not like, we've been together 35 years, but I've had 5 other chicks here and there. Or we broke up and then, no. But like, no matter how rough things got in their marriage, they always found a way to work it out.
Right.
I respect brothers to the fullest, because I say to myself, could I go 30 years, same woman? I'm not saying I can't, but that's just, I can, but it's just the thought of it, like,
and that's what I'm saying. That's my point. And what do we hope to gain and give in a relationship? Mm-hmm. Because I think we have a lot of selfish motivations, and a lot of people, even our generation, they're not OG status enough to think about that, to consider that. Like,
lost a lot of their morals and values that the men of yesteryear had.
You know, like shorty cheat on me one time, I'm gone. Everything, I'm out. And it's like you're not considering the life that you may have grown together, children, assets. Is it really worth throwing 20 years away for an indiscretion? You know what I'm saying? Now, it depends on the level of disrespect that occurred with the indiscretion. Mm-hmm. But I think that we don't know what it really means to go through hard times with someone. One of the things that my mom has said to me as an adult that makes the most sense, the most Southern phrase that makes the most sense, is you don't know how good tea is until you put it in some hot water. You know what I'm saying? You don't know how down somebody is for you unless they go through something hard with you.
That's true.
Or several things with you.
That's very, very true.
You know what I'm saying? And not even just a relationship, a friendship. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You know your real friends when they've been with you, rocking with you for years through multiple things. You know what I'm saying? And so the same thing applies to relationships. I mean, as a man, I understand that men are like visually stimulated. Mm-hmm. So the idea of a man being attracted to the same woman for 30 years is a feat to another man. That's commendable. But I also think about the various moods that I have as a woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, every month I have a struggle. And I've dated guys in the past that I'd have to cry at how grateful I was for their ability to just manage, like, to keep me in check when my emotions got out of control. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we don't think about that. I don't think, when it comes to relationships, we don't think about the hard time that you give someone else, because it doesn't sell. Yeah. You know, when you're selling yourself, you don't say, listen,
I'm prone to attitudes and fits, and I'm prone to just
flatulence. Yeah, we don't talk about stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? We just put our best foot forward, and we continue to do that until it pops up. Mm-hmm. And then you have to deal with it in the moment. And I think we're not being realistic with what we want to give in a relationship and what we hope someone is willing to tolerate when it comes to us in a relationship.
And I think that's a scary thing, because if you're talking to someone and you're trying to court someone, to use an old cliche, you're not going to tell them all the issues you have, even though you may want to, but you're not going to, because you feel like I may scare them away.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I know brothers that have had kids that they don't even tell the woman that they have kids. They don't. The woman doesn't find out until they're already dating, talking. They're already, in that stage of where dating, like where
they already know the woman loves them, so now it's acceptable for me to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're a man whose kids don't live with you, so
it's easy for you to disguise
easy to do it. Me, I couldn't do that. I could never say, if I had 1 child, 2 children, 3, I could never say I don't have any. I think it's best you put that all up front.
Oh, yeah.
Put everything up front and let it be known. Listen, this is what it is. We could still rock out if so be the case. If not, then that's fine. But I know dudes, for whatever reason, they don't.
And then also, too, you have to give the woman or man
the option
of being a step parent.
Yeah, of course,
you know what I'm saying?
Course.
Because
of course
you can't say, I want to be a family with this person, but the kids are only yours. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, at some point, y'all are going to have to come together. My stepfather, shout out to him. He's been rocking with my mom since I was like 11.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my man, 50 grand. Like, I enjoyed speaking to him. I enjoy his company. When I was growing up, he was the one who vetted the dudes that I dated.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, he was the first person to teach me how to drive.
Yeah.
So he was like
he put in that time.
Yeah, exactly. He came to all of my track meets. He was the only person there.
Yeah.
So he stepped up. Not only was he interested in my mom, but he took a genuine interest in all of her kids, but I was the youngest. And
I'm sure as you've gotten older, the older you get, the more appreciation and love you have for him. Yeah.
Absolutely. My son knows he has two grandfathers, but he has basically two maternal grandfathers. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's awesome that he took that role. His birthday was a couple of days ago, and we had a Zoom meeting, and literally all the people, or the majority of the people, were from my side of the family. And it was just interesting to see how many lives he affected from our family, not just his own. You know what I'm saying? Because
your stepfather or your father?
My stepfather.
That's awesome.
You know, because he's been around, he's been in my mom's life, he's been in our lives, and he's affected so many of us. The flip side of that is my sister has a good friend who doesn't have any children. She was sent to the Philippines by her job to help start an office, right? And she's from my hometown in South Carolina, and I'm not going to bash my hometown, but what she did in terms of her career is a big thing. And for her to be a young Black woman without any children is even more so a major thing.
Of course.
So she was talking about how a guy basically did what you said. He was like, hey, I know it took you out a couple of times, but I got 3 kids. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I had to block this dude after that because I'm not interested. And when I was in my mid-20s, I almost expected the guy that I talked to have kids.
Was she into him?
And see, that's the thing.
Before she found out,
she may have liked him, but to your point, that's a big thing for you not to tell me. And it's not as though you only have a kid. You have 3 or 4 kids.
Right.
And you want me to be integrated into your life who has several kids, and I have none.
None.
Not only do I not have none, I live a lifestyle that affords me the ability to travel and do all these different things. Why would I entangle myself with you?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
And I told her, I was like, cut your losses right now.
And also too, you know, on the bigger picture, what if she wanted to have children and he said, well, I got 3, so I'm straight.
Exactly. And I mean, you got to really consider what you want. Mm-hmm. You really have to think about that. And that goes ultimately to the goals, which is, are we going to be content with shacking up, or do we want marriage? Do you want kids? Do you think of being married as a partnership, like we're building together? I think it sounds good to say, oh, this is my queen, or this is my king, but you're not really making
that term because it's become so cliche.
It's so watered down because y'all not making no kingdom moves at all.
Right, you're really not. You're really not. Both of y'all sitting there working minimum wage, stringing 2 nickels to make a dime, and I'm not knocking it, but let's tone it down. With
basically, y'all are serfs.
Right. Exactly.
Talking about you want to be kings and queens.
Yeah. Going through dating and relationships is always going to be a tough navigational road. It always is because, I mean, you can be one dude who's dated so many different women and you're like, they've all fallen by the wayside. You start to give up yourself.
Yep.
Or you can be a guy who's a coxman and then the well dries up and you're like, all right, I want to have someone that there's more to it than just, being intimate. So it's always going to be tough. And same thing with a woman. Women are the same way. Some women are like, especially if they see their counterparts with men, they say, why can't that be me? What's wrong with me? Or, they may have a child and now I have a child. I feel like I'm damaged goods and it shouldn't be like that. But that's just the superficial thinking that we have come to over the years because, back then, like we said, men don't have that OG mentality. Like, matter of fact, how many men now, in your stepfather's case, would take on a woman who has a child? And especially scary, too, for me anyway, taking on a woman who has a daughter who's 11, 12, 13. Now I have to deal with this girl who's going to be growing up.
Right.
Hormones and all that.
Boys.
Right. And also you have to be careful how you move around her too. Because you don't ever want her to say, he's looking at me.
Right.
He touched me. I'm uncomfortable being around him.
There was something that was on social media at some time where a 16-year-old girl she videotaped her telling her mother that the mom's boyfriend came into her room. The mother spazzed on the girl, on her daughter. Don't say no mess like that. You lying. Da, 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 da.
And that's another proponent because she could be telling the truth. But because you're so into the guy, especially if you haven't had a man in a while, so you're so into the man.
And the mother was relatively young, you could tell she was like in her late 30s, early 40s. She was, so she was still, a young, attractive woman.
Right.
But my thing is, why tear down your own kid as opposed to saying, let me question the dude
and figure out what's going on?
Because why would my own kid do that to me? So, and I know you and I have had this conversation because of our own personal situations where we've talked about trusting the people that you allow to meet your children because I have a son, you have a son and a daughter, and those are things you have to think about because it's not just people touching your daughters anymore.
Right.
You got to worry about people putting their hands on your boys.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think about too. Like, would someone take a genuine enough interest in my kid to raise him to be a man as opposed to trying to
get in good with him to get to you or
even to get close to me to get to him.
Around with him.
And it's sad that this is the world that we live in.
It is.
But I feel like I would be remiss as a parent if I didn't date with those things in mind. You know what I'm saying?
I think you'd have to, and it's all about trial and error because you can always decide not to be with the person. It's not like once we start dating, we're stuck.
I'm committed to you, right?
You're committed. But it is hard in this day and age because a lot of men they don't have the same maturity. Say, for instance, a man 35 now, the maturity is far different than a 35-year-old man 20 years ago. Because even I look back when I was in my 20s, things that we did far different than what 20-year-olds do now. Like,
absolutely.
I see dudes now in their 20s, all they talk about is matching up, going to the trap. We're going to get that tray. We're going to do this and do that. Tray 5. So, yeah, it's 3. I'm serious. So, always talking about, I got that loud. I got this. I got that. And then you see them just sitting around smoking all the time. And I say to myself, don't y'all brothers do something else?
Constructive. It's something that builds yourself up.
Listen, take a trip. Like I knew dudes who would, like a bunch of us would get together. We take a road trip or we go to the DR or we go to Puerto Rico. We go here.
Or you got homeboys that have moved out of state.
And we all go check
and y'all all go check them out.
Or even on a local level, we'll go to a casino, go to a lounge, go to a poetry reading. Just do something.
Cultural things that build you.
Right. Not just sitting around, matching and smoking. That's it. And that's all right. So once you get your high, what else? You're going to keep going and going and going?
And see, that's when that whole pretty boy swag thing, me and my boys in the club looking sexy. How do you know your homeboy looks sexy?
I think Soulja Boy is one of the reasons why hip hop has become so effeminized.
Yeah.
Oh, also, shameless plug, I wrote an article on Opinionated Mail as well as called, I think it was called The Top 10 Dumbest Rap Songs I've Heard. And, he was featured in that. A couple of his songs are featured in that.
But I mean, to your point, after you've matched several blunts and you're sitting there in a stupor.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
And I'm saying like, do y'all have girlfriends? And I don't mean just getting up with chicks to go smash. I'm talking like, do y'all go places? And it even gets back to how the generation is now. We talked about technology. There have been times I've gone to bars and lounges and I would see couples and you can tell they're on a date. Both of them got their phones and they're texting away.
Right. They're not even engaged with each other.
Not even engaged in conversation. The only time they put the phone down is when the waiter comes with the drinks.
Now, see, to me, that's a sign of the date not going well.
But then also, too, you can be in a situation where you guys are dating, but because of the way the generation is, we just know about our phones.
For me, that's a bad sign. I may be on my phone to check my bank account to make sure I can afford my half of the food if he acts stupid. But
what you doing? No, baby, I'm just transferring from my savings to my check-ins.
That's all that is. Don't even worry about it. But seriously, there have been times where, you may be talking to somebody and you forget you have a phone.
Right.
You're engaged with that person. When I did a paint bar thing a couple of times. It was very encouraging to see couples there. One time that I went, there were couples of various ages. There were people in their 60s, and there was, a couple that was clearly, this is like their second or third date or whatever, and the guy was trying to impress the girl. That to me was like wholesome, because he's sitting up there, he's like, girl, check this out, I'm about to put these leaves on this tree right here. You know what I'm saying? And there wasn't an opportunity for me to get my phone,
because we're so engaged. There's so much stimulation going on. Right. And this is why I tell brothers too, when they talk about going on dates, always make sure you go somewhere where
it encourages that.
Not like, I wouldn't suggest going somewhere where you're going to have to pull out
That's
your
a
phone.
whole nother conversation.
Yeah, a whole nother conversation.
I started an article for Opinionated Mail on how you should do first dates when you're getting to know people.
Did you submit it? What happened?
I don't think so. I don't know if I did or not, but I did craft an article about that on some interesting dates, ranging from like, oh, you're breaded and you're caked up and you're trying to stunt, to, very basic, like half baked. I got $3.
Yo, the more I look at that movie, he pulled it off so well.
Oh man, that was smooth. The blind dude with the phone? Yeah, go ahead and do what you gotta do, because they be getting some money.
And it's funny, she wanted to take a cab. No, we'll just walk. Then it said 5 miles later. She's like, I was wondering, can we just take a cab? And he's like, yeah.
So, nowadays, you could split an Uber and it costs about $3 or $4 between the two of you, depending on where you're going. So, they've made certain things convenient for people when you don't have a lot of money. But overall, the overarching theme I have found is that people are more comfortable without hard and fast rules, I guess, or deadlines. So most people, even our age, are dating without a goal. They're kind of like, well, I'm gonna just see where this goes. I'm kind of just gonna figure it out and learn. They don't think like, oh, I'm dating shorty because I want a wife, or, I am alone. I don't want to be alone, but I'm tired of dating women that don't work out. So for me, I look at the average of marriage, and it's really declined significally since the 60s. And black couples. And it's interesting because before the civil rights movement was a thing, black homes were very strong. You know what I'm saying? And we didn't have a whole lot. Our community wasn't, I don't think, severely adversely affected by the Depression, because most people of color were already depressed anyway. Depressed. Right. So again, we were already living in difficult times, so we understood how important it was to rely on each other.
And to have that sense of family.
Exactly.
Yeah. Join us for another thought-provoking and intellect-stimulating episode of Illegitimate Intellectuals. It's your girl, Miss KK. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm out.